Well, in what the State Department called a brazen violation of international law, a Russian warplane shot at and shot down a U.S. drone over the Black Sea. The Pentagon says the U.S. military was forced to crash the drone as a result because of the damage caused when it was hit. Moscow is denying those claims, insisting it didn't fire their weapons to strike the drone, saying it just didn't happen that way. This does mark the first time a U.S. aircraft has been brought down by a Russian warplane since the Cold War. It also comes as tensions mount over the war in Ukraine. Joining us this morning, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Sir, always a pleasure. What do you make? What's your assessment of this latest interaction? The risk of miscalculation, pretty big here.
Pretty big here, Marni. You're right. The Russians clearly acting inappropriately, recklessly, endangering, violating international law, as you've just mentioned. Neither side, Marni, is looking. Neither the Russians nor NATO is looking for a conflict between those. What NATO is doing, as you've reported over and over, is NATO supporting Ukraine's right to self-defense, right to defend its own territory. The Russians, though, are abrogating that. The Russians, of course, invaded Ukraine, and now they are interfering with aircraft in international waters. Neither side wants to fight, but this is irresponsible in terms of what the Russians have done.
And what we know about these MQ-9 drones is they've been gathering intelligence in this area well before Russia invaded Ukraine. So what do you make of the timing of this?
So you're right. These drones have been picking up information for a long time. International waters, this is perfectly legitimate. This is what we do. This is what they do. This is what international actors do. What's different is the Russians attacking one of these. It's not clear that they used any weapons. It sounds like they dumped some fuel on this drone. But the drone is there to do legitimate activities.
Let's talk about the battle for a moment, Ambassador. There are reports Poland is ready to provide fighter jets to Ukraine, potentially in the next couple of weeks. We saw the same thing with tanks. Once Germany acted, the U.S. followed suit. Do you expect something similar may happen with the U.S. and Poland when it comes to aircraft?
I do, Marni. I think this is coming. And this would enable the Ukrainians, by the way, to keep the Russians at bay. The Ukrainians are having a hard time pushing the Russian aircraft back into Russia. The Russian aircraft are flying off of Crimea. If the Ukrainians had more aircraft or fighter aircraft, they could push the Russians back. They could certainly use this aircraft in support of their counteroffensive, the Ukrainian counteroffensive, which they are planning with the tanks that you just mentioned, as well as the other fires that they are using and integrating into their military very successfully. So I think the decision's coming for fighter aircraft.
I'm glad you brought up the Ukrainian offensive, because so often in the last few months we're hearing of this big spring Russian offensive, but Ukraine is preparing. I spoke with a member of Ukraine's parliament who couldn't say when or where or really even how, but there is a lot of anticipation that Ukraine is planning something big here. What do you foresee the next phase of this battle?
I think they're right. I think you're right talking to her, and her. She's right not to say. We don't know where the Ukrainians are going to attack. We know they're preparing for it. We know they're pulling units off the line to train and equip with these tanks that you mentioned, Marni. We also know that the Russians have been trying to mount an offensive themselves. They've been trying to take Bakhmut for 8 months, and so far have failed. They've made little progress here and there, and they've moved up until the middle of Bakhmut, but they've expended incredible resources, and this might be their offensive. The Ukrainian counteroffensive is likely to be much stronger, and I hope more successful.
And while this is all happening, there is speculation, as you know, Ambassador, China's president may visit Moscow in an effort to broker some sort of peace deal to get Russia out of Ukraine. What concerns you about this relationship between these two world superpowers and the fact that the U.S. and Ukraine aren't going to be involved in these potential talks?
So President Zelensky has said he'd like to talk to President Xi about this. President Xi has, yes, put forward kind of a lopsided proposal that has some things in there that are of interest. That is, in the Chinese proposal, they say they respect sovereignty and territorial integrity. That, of course, the Russians have shredded Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity. Another thing in that proposal, Marni, is the Chinese caution, not even caution, demand of the Russians not to even threaten the use of nuclear weapons. Those are good things. However, they talk about ceasefires, and a ceasefire to give the Russians control over what they now have is over Ukrainian territory is not acceptable. So the Russians perceive the Chinese as kind of on their side. The Ukrainians don't see the Chinese as being a neutral arbiter. The Chinese should be talking to the Ukrainians as well.
William Taylor, we'll leave it at that. Thank you as always. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.